There is a place where time stands still, by the edge of a quiet river, where an old man sits alone. Some say he waits, others say he remembers, but everyone who speaks with him leaves changed. What is it about this silent figure that draws people in, and what ancient wisdom hides behind his gentle smile? It was a foggy morning when Leon first saw the old man by the river. He was sitting on a flat rock, motionless, watching the water flow as if the world beyond the current no longer concerned him. Something in the man's stillness seemed deeply intentional, not idleness, but presence. Curious and restless, Leon approached, feeling slightly embarrassed as he realized he had nothing to say. But before he could speak, the old man turned his eyes to him and offered a small, knowing smile, the kind that made you feel as though he had been expecting you all along. Leon sat down beside him, unsure why. He wasn't looking for advice or guidance. He didn't even know what he was looking for. And yet, he stayed, drawn by the quiet. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the river and the occasional rustle of leaves. Finally, the old man spoke. "You've been carrying something heavy," he said, not as a question, but as a truth. Leon looked down, startled. How could he know? The words triggered something inside the young man. He began to talk, slowly at first, then as if releasing a flood, about disappointments, broken dreams, a sense of drifting in life. The old man didn't interrupt. He listened with complete attention, as if each word was a drop of water in the river's eternal flow. When Leon finished, the old man simply nodded. "The river carries everything," he said, "but it never loses itself. It flows, not because it forgets, but because it accepts." Leon didn't fully understand, not yet, but something inside him stirred. The next morning, Leon returned to the river. He wasn't sure what he hoped to find. Maybe more words, maybe silence. But the old man was already there, sitting exactly as before, as if he had never moved. The sun rose gently behind the trees, casting golden lines across the water. Leon sat beside him without speaking, and again they shared the silence. It wasn't awkward, it was grounding. This time the old man spoke first. "When I was young, I tried to outrun the river," he said, his voice slow, thoughtful. "I thought I could control its flow, make it turn where I wanted, but it only taught me patience." Leon turned to him, intrigued. There was something in the old man's tone that hinted at a story, a life full of struggle, of learning. The river, it seemed, had not only been a companion, but a teacher. Leon asked, "What did you lose?" The question surprised him as much as it surprised the old man. For a long moment, the old man didn't answer. Then he said softly, "More than I can name. A brother, a purpose, even time itself. But none of it was really lost. It flowed through me, and now it lives in the silence I keep." The weight of those words pressed on Leon's chest, but not in a painful way. It was more like a gentle anchor. The young man looked at the water, trying to imagine all the pain, dreams, and memories that might have passed through this river. He asked, "How do you live with it?" The old man replied, "I don't. I let it live. I don't resist what has already happened. Resistance is the weight. Acceptance is the current." His words were like stones dropped into the soul, creating ripples long after the sound faded. There was a power in how the old man spoke, not in volume or drama, but in clarity. Every sentence felt distilled from years of reflection. Leon realized that this man wasn't simply wise because of age, but because he had listened to the river, to life, to loss. And now Leon was beginning to listen too. The old man reached into a small pouch and pulled out a smooth, round stone. He handed it to Leon without explanation. The boy held it in his hand, warm from the old man's touch, and turned it over slowly. "What is this?" he asked. The old man smiled. "A memory, not mine, yours, but you haven't remembered it yet." Leon didn't understand, but the stone felt strangely familiar, like something he had lost before he was even born.
That night, Leanne dreamed of a river that flowed through stars. Its waters shimmered with light instead of liquid, and its current whispered names he had never spoken aloud. When he awoke, the stone was still in his hand. He hadn't realized he'd fallen asleep holding it, but now it felt heavier, almost pulsing. Something in it called to him, not with sound, but with memory. Not a memory from this life, perhaps, but from something deeper. He returned to the river at first light. The old man was already there, as always, as if he belonged more to the place than to time itself. Leanne sat beside him and placed the stone gently on the flat rock between them. "I dreamed of a river in the sky," he said, not expecting it to make sense. But the old man only nodded, unfazed. "That river has always flowed. Some only glimpse it once. You're lucky. It remembered you." The old man then told a story, not his own this time, but something older, a tale of a boy who once carried a stone carved from the heart of a mountain. This stone was said to store the echoes of all he had yet to become. The boy wandered for years, trying to understand a stone's meaning, mistaking it for a burden. Only when he sat still by a quiet river did he hear its true voice. Leanne realized the story was both myth and mirror. He had carried so many questions in silence about who he was, what he was meant to do, and why nothing in his life had ever felt truly his. The old man wasn't answering them directly. He was unfolding them like ancient scrolls, layer by layer. The stone, the river, the story. They weren't symbols to be solved, but companions in remembering. "What do I do with the stone?" Leanne asked. The old man looked at him deeply and said, "Let it show you who you were before the world told you who to be." Those words hit harder than anything before. Leanne's breath caught in his throat. He realized he had spent his whole life building walls, expectations, appearances, fears, and now, in the quiet, those walls began to crumble. The river, too, had become louder, not in sound, but in presence. Its current seemed to swirl around them, as if listening, responding. The stone in Leanne's hand grew warmer, and for a brief moment, he felt like he wasn't just sitting by the river, he was part of it, not separate, not searching, just flowing.
That afternoon, the sky changed. Clouds rolled in slowly, casting long shadows over the riverbank. The air felt thick, like something was about to shift. Leon returned, the stone in his pocket, its warmth now constant, like a pulse that wasn't his, but somehow belonged to him. He found the old man sitting in the same place, his eyes not on the river this time, but on the sky. Without turning, the old man said, "Today, the river speaks." Leon wasn't sure what that meant, but he felt it too. An invisible hum beneath the ground, in the leaves, in the wind. It was as if the world had taken a deep breath and was holding it, waiting. He sat down, trying to match the old man's stillness, though every part of him was tense with anticipation. Then, a sudden gust of wind passed over them, strong but not violent. The river stirred. Its calm surface rippled with a strange rhythm, not chaotic but purposeful. It wasn't water moving. It was something older than water, a voice without words. Leon heard nothing and everything. Memories he'd buried, thoughts he'd avoided, feelings he didn't understand all rose like mist from the riverbed. The old man placed his hand on the ground beside him. "The river doesn't just carry water," he said softly. "It carries truths, but only to those who are still enough to listen." Leon closed his eyes. The world disappeared. What remained was sensation. The cool earth, the warmth of the stone, the rhythm of the river like a heartbeat against time itself. And then, something inside him cracked. He saw himself as a child, standing at the edge of another river, crying for someone who never returned. He saw the nights he stayed silent when he should have spoken, and the words he spoke just to fill the silence. The river was showing him what he had hidden, not to punish him, but to free him. And in that moment, he wept, quiet, uncontrolled, and without shame. When he opened his eyes, the river had calmed again. The sky had lightened. The old man looked at him, not with pity or pride, but with recognition. "Now, you're beginning to hear. But remember, the river only shows you what you're ready to face. Don't rush it. Walk its edge slowly." Leon nodded, and for the first time, truly felt the weight of being alive.
The days that followed were quiet. Leon stopped asking questions. He no longer needed answers in words because the river taught in silences, and the old man was its echo. Every morning, Leon arrived at dawn and sat beside him. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't, but something deeper passed between them, something more enduring than conversation, a kind of remembering, not of facts, but of being. One morning, the old man handed Leon a small wooden bowl carved roughly from a dark tree. "Fetch water," he said, pointing to the river. Leon did as asked, filling the bowl and bringing it back. The old man stared into the bowl for a long time, then gently blew across the surface. The ripples spread slowly, perfectly symmetrical, until they disappeared. "This," he said, "is how thoughts behave in a still mind." Leon understood. He thought of all the times he had tried to calm his thoughts by force. Meditation apps, breathing routines, distractions. But the old man was showing him something else. Stillness wasn't created. It was uncovered, like something buried beneath the noise. You didn't chase it, you waited. And when the ripples faded, clarity arrived like a reflection. Later that day, they walked upriver together for the first time. The old man led slowly, choosing each step with care. Leon noticed how he avoided certain stones, stepped over fallen branches, and paused often, not because of age, but as if he was listening with his feet. Every movement had meaning. Every pause was a message. He wasn't walking through the land. He was walking with it. At a bend in the river, they stopped.
There, half buried in the earth, was a fallen tree whose roots reached into the water like frozen claws. The old man sat, tapped the trunk, and said, "Even in death it feeds the river." Leon sat beside him, feeling the depth of that statement. In a world obsessed with usefulness, the old man showed that value does not end with purpose. It transforms. They stayed there until sunset. As the sky turned amber and the river shimmered gold, Leon felt something new. Not peace, exactly, but permission. Permission to be unfinished, to not know everything, to simply be. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he had to prove or chase or change. The silence of the old man, the rhythm of the river, they had become part of him.
The final morning came without warning. The air was cooler, the mist heavier. Leon woke before the sun and felt something different, a subtle pull in his chest, as if the river itself was calling him. He hurried down the path, heart beating faster than usual, the stone still tucked safely in his pocket. But when he arrived at the riverbank, the old man wasn't there. For a moment, panic gripped him. The flat rock was empty, the silence thicker than usual. Leon looked up and down the river, but there was no sign of the old man. Only the river flowed, calm and indifferent, as it always had. He sat down, unsure what to do, unsure what this meant. Had the old man left? Had he ever truly been here at all? Doubt crept in like a cold wind. Then, across the water, he saw movement, not a figure, but a reflection. His own face mirrored perfectly in the river's surface, but it was different. He looked older, not in years, but in presence. His eyes carried stillness, his breath slowed. The river was not empty, it was full of echoes, of lessons, of everything the old man had shown him. And then Leon understood. The old man had never been teaching him to follow. He had been preparing him to listen. He took the stone from his pocket and held it over the water. It was warm, steady, almost alive. Slowly, he lowered it into the river. It sank without resistance, disappearing into the current. For a moment, he felt a pang of loss, but it faded, replaced by something deeper: gratitude. The stone had served its purpose. It had remembered what Leon had forgotten. Now it could return to the source. He sat there for hours, watching the river, not waiting for anything, not hoping for anything, just being. He thought about the man who sat here every morning. Was he still out there, sitting by some other bend of the river? Or had he always been part of the river itself, a voice it used to speak? He smiled. It no longer mattered. What mattered was what remained within him. As the sun reached its highest point, Leon stood. He looked once more at the water, then turned away, not with sorrow, but with calm. He would return someday, he knew, not as a seeker, but as someone others might find. For that is the river's way. It teaches, it remembers, and it flows through those who are willing to be still long enough to listen.
And so, the river continued to flow, as it always had, as it always will. Leon returned to his life, but something had shifted inside him. He no longer searched outside for answers. He had learned to listen, not just to the world, but to the quiet voice within. The old man by the river may never be seen again, or perhaps he was never just a man, but the river itself, taking shape to guide those who are ready. In the end, we all stand by the river someday, holding a stone of our own. The question is, will we have the courage to let it go? If this story touched you, take a moment of stillness today and just listen.